what is the biggest takeaways you got from working on those kind of big hits? Because, I mean, Raising Arizona wasn't, if I remember correctly, it wasn't a monster hit by any stretch. It was kind of like a cult.
Right.
It was a cult thing. But was Big the first kind of big thing that you'd worked on that was a big box office? Or was it
the movie before Big was Throw Mama from the Train.
Yes,
so that was the first movie. Although I had been hired to shoot Big, and then after I was hired, about 2 weeks into it, the studio shut it down because they did. Petty wanted De Niro for the lead, and Barry Diller wanted Hanks. So we shut down to wait for Hanks, and that allowed me to go shoot Throw Mama from the Train with Danny DeVito, who became a good friend of mine. But I think that it's funny that I think Danny's movie was the first movie where I was sort of like, in Hollywood, making, a real movie on real stages. And what's funny is Throw Mama was shot on stage 3/8 at Hollywood Center Studios. It was before that it was Zoetrope, which Francis Ford Coppola owned. So the first movie I shoot in LA is Throw Mama, and it's stage 3/8. Then when I'm shooting When Harry Met Sally, part of that takes place. We shot some of it in New York, but all the sets we built, and we were on stage 3/8 at Hollywood Center Studios. Then then we shoot Misery, and Misery is shot on stage 3/8 at Hollywood Center Studios. And then I become a director, and the first thing I'm ever doing as a director is we built the mansion, the Addams Family Mansion, on stage 3/8 at Hollywood Center Studios. So I said to my wife, I call her Sweetie, I said, everyone says Hollywood is the film capital of the world. They seem to have one stage.
That's the only one they give you.
Literally 4 different times. The first 4 times I ever shot anything in Hollywood was all on the same stage.
So what are some takeaways you had from shooting those kind of big movies like Big and When Harry Met Sally, and just being in the, I've had other guests on the show that have been in the middle of like a cyclone of like big hits. And I always fascinated, and you were cinematographer at that point, so you weren't like the head, the creative force behind it at that point. But when you're the DP of Big, and then When Harry Met Sally, and Throw Mama from the Train, and Misery, back to back to back to back, there's very few guys in town who are doing this. How does it feel like to be in that time period of your career?
I really enjoyed being a cameraman. I really loved the job. I wasn't saying I should be a director. I wasn't that guy. I was really happy being a cinematographer. It was interesting to watch how different directors worked, although truthfully, because one of the things I believe in, both as when I was a cameraman and now as a director and a producer, is I believe that the camera can be more than a recording device. The camera can actually be a storytelling device. It can be a character in the movie. You look at Blood Simple, you look at Throw Mama from the Train, you look at Raising Arizona, you look at Addams Family, or what I did for 3 years on a series of unfortunate events for Netflix. The camera is a character in these shows. So even though I was a cinematographer, I was very involved, very, very involved in everything. I would often, after lunch, actors are usually tired. They've just eaten, all the blood's, working to digest their food, So, I always called myself not the cinematographer, but the friend of the director. So I could say to Rob or Danny or whoever, I think they had more energy in the master before lunch. You want to just remind them to pick up their energy, which is stuff that if a cameraman said to me, I'd be really annoyed by, but somehow I got away with it because I guess I was always a bit of a filmmaker. I did most of the designing of the shots to the other directors, less so with Joel and Ethan. but like on Big, I designed, all the shots and stuff like that. And with Rob, on his 2 movies, I was very instrumental in the way those movies looked and all that. I recommended that Rob hire Kathy Bates to be the lead in Misery.
Not a bad choice.
Not a bad choice. And Kathy and I became really good friends. Every morning she'd arrive on the set and go, "Fuck you, Sonnenfeld," and I go, "Fuck you, Bates." That was like our way of saying hi. Here's a horrible moment on the set of Misery. Jimmy Kahn, spent most of the movie in bed.
Yeah.
And at one point, he had, Kathy Bates goes into town, so he gets out of bed and he's in pain because his leg's all screwed up, and he has to crawl across the floor. And I'm underslung with a very wide-angle lens. The camera's right on the ground, and Jimmy's crawling towards me. And Jimmy says to Rob and myself, Jimmy says, "Hey, Bear." He says, hey, Rob, how far should I crawl? And Rob looks at me and goes, "Back." And I go, and I spit on the floor. And Rob Reiner, because I have no respect for Jimmy at this point, and Rob Reiner says, "Crawl to the loogie, Jimmy." Oh. So Rob has no respect for Jimmy either at this point. The main difference is on big features, you've got more money, you've got more equipment, you've got more cranes, you've got bigger crews, you've got more lights, and also it's easier, actually, because if you fall behind schedule, the studio has more money. On Blood Simple, there was no more money. Mm-hmm. If we needed reshoots, we shot a lot of little inserts and stuff for Blood Simple in my backyard in East Hampton, Long Island. There was no more money to be found. On big budget films, there's always more money. The studio isn't going to say, we're not finishing the movie. So
right.
I found the bigger the budget, actually the easier it is.